Good morning. How's everybody doing today? Dr. Roddenberry coming to you from my office here on South Campus at Wake Tech. Good to see you, Dimitro. How you doing this morning? I'm assuming Johanna's probably in here too. Good to see you as well. Oh, my coffee is getting cold. Awful. Hey, we got Caleb here too. Hi, Caleb. How you doing? Oof. I gotta kind of find a way to keep my coffee warm. Yeah, I'm doing fine, Dimitro. Doing fine. Struggling, trying to make sure I got everything. Trying to keep myself above water and putting this class together and getting the PowerPoints and all that stuff. Just stressing, normal stress. Hey, you know about stress. We've been talking about it, right? Fantastic. Wow, looks like we have a huge audience today for people. I'm so excited. Thank you very much. Welcome. We're going to continue talking about Chapter 9, Friendship and Love today. Let's see. So we talked about close relationships. We suggested, remember we talked about how important they are in the stress and coping response. And so we're going to talk about them. And close relationships represent everything from friends and family to your lovers and the people you married. Although we have close relationships are great for us, useful for us, make us healthier and happier. You know what? They also invoke some of our strongest negative reactions as well: rage, jealousy, and despair, right? We talked about characteristics, sort of contextual characteristics that affect people's attraction for others. When you run across people more often, you're more likely to become friends. People that you and the reason so because you're closer to them. Physical attractiveness does matter. Facial features. What I do want you to know is that people tend to match up based on looks. And then we started talking about models of close relationships, and I said. One way of thinking about people's preferences in relationships can be from an evolutionary standpoint. We're actually going to talk about this tomorrow when we talk about marriage again. But the evolutionary perspective suggests that you can look at patterns of attraction and find that females tend to find wealth, intelligence, and energy more attractive, and males tend to look more at physical qualities and youth in terms of finding attractive partners. And it all depends upon these evolutionary needs. A female that has an offspring is responsible for caring for that offspring, so she's looking, those qualities that help her raise that offspring are going to be more attractive. On the other hand, a male can spread the seed in any number of places, and so they're looking more for these more physical qualities. Good morning, Johanna. Good to see you. Now, again, this idea of heterosexism, a lot of this research is going to come from research about heterosexual couples. In fact, like I said, a lot of the attitudes research on attitudes, similarity, proximity, all looked at heterosexual relationships. When we talk about marriage tomorrow, again, they're going to bring up this idea that we only focus on heterosexual couples. And this, to a certain extent, is true. Hold on, my computer's dying over here, so I have to plug it up. Okay, here we go. All right, so two factors in reciprocal liking and similarity, relationship maintenance behaviors. We talked about that. Social exchange. Okay, so why do people stay in relationships? Social exchange theory says it's not just about satisfaction, but it's about other things that add to this quality we call commitment. People staying or leaving a relationship depends upon their commitment, not necessarily their happiness. What's related to commitment? Well, The level of satisfaction, of course, does play a role. It's their satisfaction compared to what they think they could get. And then there's also their investments, which is what people put into a relationship that can't be gotten back out of that relationship. And then we're all, in a sense, have to think about our alternatives. And by alternatives, I mean other relationship partners, or sometimes being alone is an alternative as well. All right, now, some researchers are interested in trying to figure out what exactly is love. If I asked you to describe love, we could probably sit here for a whole hour and have some bizarro debate about what exactly is love. And I guarantee you none of us would really be happy because we wouldn't really have captured the complexity of this thing called love. But a fellow named Robert Sternberg developed a model where he tried to sort of capture what he thought was the important qualities of love and to sort of explain how love might change over the course of a long-term relationship. If you've ever, I've been married for 27 years, and I will tell you that different qualities of love become important at different points in the relationship. So he argues that there are three main qualities that you can think about with regard to love. So now he argues that there's intimacy, and I don't necessarily mean sexual intimacy, but I mean that kind of sharing where I tell you everything and you tell me everything. You know what? This warmth, closeness, and feeling is something that two good friends could have. Two good friends could have warmth, closeness, and sharing. Okay? Now, another quality of love, he argued, is commitment, which is the decision intent to maintain that relationship in spite of the difficulties and costs that may arise. Again, another quality that could exist in a good friend. I'm going to be with my pal Pete through thick and thin. So intimacy is the degree to which you share with the person. Commitment is the degree to which you're going to stick with them through thick and thin. And he argues, and there's this third quality that we typically think about with regard to love, which is passion. And those are those intense feelings of longing and sexual excitement. And I'm sure each and every one of you that has been in had a crush or been in a romantic relationship has felt the rise of passion in your soul. And so Sternberg argues that you can think about relationships as love as having equal parts of these three qualities. Now he argues if you have all three of these qualities, you have what he would call consummate love, the perfect love, if you will. However, what you're going to notice is if you ask people around you who are in love relationships, what you're going to find is that they're going to describe having different qualities, different amounts of each of these three types of qualities, and they may differ by marriage, and within a marriage, things may change. So if you go talk to your grandparents who've been married 60 years, you know what you may find? That their infatuation is gone. Grandma and grandpa no longer run around and tickle each other like newlyweds or people that have been dating 6 or 7 weeks, right? So you might say the passion isn't there with grandma and grandpa, but you know what? Their kind of love is composed of commitment and intimacy and talking with one another. On the other hand, I don't know if you've ever fallen deeply in love with somebody that you maybe didn't really weren't committed to. Maybe you had a summer fling and it was just the most amazing thing, but you never intended to marry this person. Maybe you knew you were going back home and you had other fish to fry. And so, but you spent all summer long sharing your most intimate details with this person, engaged in passionate lovemaking. If you've ever had one of those high school summer experiences, you might have experienced romantic love instead of grandma and grandpa's compassionate love, right? And on the other hand, sometimes You may be absolutely in love with a movie star or a pop star, somebody that you will never get to share details with, but you are so passionate about that person and you would walk a million miles for that person. You are you are exhibiting what Sternberg would call fatuous love. So, what I like about this model is it suggests that you can think of love, this quality that human beings try to develop in their relationships, as composed of these three different kinds of things. And then love really is a combination of these factors. And not every love relationship you have is going to have the same amounts of liking, passion, and commitment. It's just not going to happen, right? And so, and he talks about different kinds of relationships. So if you like somebody, you have intimacy. So I talk to my buddy Pete. I like him a lot. Do I have any passion towards him? Absolutely not. If he moved away, would I follow him? No, absolutely not. But you know what? Pete is my buddy, so I like him. Some people are in marriages because they have to be in a marriage, but they don't like the person when they're with, and they have no passion with the person they're with. Those people might experience empty love, if you will. And then I don't know if you've ever met somebody over the course of a weekend and you didn't know anything about them and you never intended to talk to them again, but you just wanted to have that infatuated weekend. And so in a sense, what's cool about Sternberg's theory is by combining these three basic qualities, he can sort of give you an idea of 8 different styles of love that you've probably experienced. Perfect, consummate love with your soulmate, liking that you might have for your buddies, that empty marriage that occurs when somebody married for money 30 years ago, or the infatuation of a weekend fling. And so his model kind of captures all the different characteristics that go into this thing of liking versus loving, right? Because liking and loving are different. And loving isn't just more liking, it's different than liking, right? Now, the neat thing is Sternberg's theory, you can ask people what is most important to them in their partner and what they think about. And what you're going to find is that over the space of a relationship, these 3 different qualities are going to become different, are going to change in their difference to the relationships. So if you look at this map right here, what you're going to notice is when people first get together, passion is the most important thing. Intimacy and commitment are rising, but the thing that really drives people together at first is that passion. But you know what? That passion dips down after several years or after an amount of time, and it starts coming down. But what becomes more important then is the fact that we share and we are committed to one another. And so what Sternberg shows is that as marriages evolve, as relationships evolve, these 3 qualities that compose the perfect love sort of change in their importance and value to us. And so his model is neat in that it tells us how liking might be different from loving. It tells us what maybe the 3 important qualities that make up love are, and how combinations of these create the different styles of love that we see in the world. And he also explains how relationships and feelings of love change as we move across the span of our relationship. Now, some people have asked the question, oh my goodness, I should have. Let's see, do I have it? No. Okay. You know what, you should look it up in your book. There are some people who want to ask the question, do your childhood experiences affect the way your adult relationships go, right? So, does the love you did or did not get from your parents, does that affect the way you are as an adult? How many of you have dated a person who maybe had childhood issues? And when you dated that person, you found out that these issues became problematic in your relationship. Anybody ever been with somebody that maybe had a tough childhood? Researchers are interested in whether or not childhood relationships have an impact on how we have adult relationships. And there is it actually is described in your book in a little bit of detail. I didn't put it in the PowerPoint, but there's this concept of attachment, all right? And some people argue that the way you attach to your primary caregiver, to your mom or dad, the first couple of years of your life really predicts how you are going to act as an adult in adult relationships. So attachment is the process of bonding with your primary caregiver that occurs over the first 2 years of your life. All kids go through it. And you're going to see some really normal behaviors out of kids, infants, as they develop this attachment. Kids will actually become so attached to their parent as an infant that they'll cry when their parent puts them down or goes away. This is separation anxiety, and it represents a normal child bonding with a primary caregiver during the first 2 years. If you've ever been around toddler children, you will notice that toddler children seem to be really nervous and fearful around strangers, and they hover near their parents whenever strangers go around. This is called stranger anxiety. And you know what? Separation anxiety and stranger anxiety are two demonstrations that your child is developing a normal attachment to their primary caregiver. And children learn to trust their primary caregiver and use them as a secure base so that they can then start exploring the world. And the child, the relationship they have, this attachment relationship, gives them the comfort so that they can begin learning, right? If you remember, we've been talking about emotional responses to stress, and fear is an emotion. And if your child is afraid and fearful for their safety, these stress hormones are going to run through their body, and the child's not going to be able to engage in the exploratory behavior that allows them to learn and develop. So it's very important that the child develop a secure connection with their primary caregiver. Now, what this lady named Mary Ainsworth found is that not all children develop this thing we'll call a secure attachment to their parents. She actually found that some people developed what she called non-secure attachment styles. She found that some children seemed really, really clingy with their parents, really, really clingy. And she called these children anxious, ambivalent children. She found that some of these babies seemed angry or isolated from their parents, right? And she called these babies avoidant babies. And so what she found is that if you look at a group of 2-year-olds, what you're going to find is that about half of those children have a secure attachment. You can tell they have a good relationship with their parent, and they're not afraid of their parent leaving them. What she finds, she'll suggest, is that 25% of these children, though, are going to show you through their behavior that they don't really have a good attachment with their parent because they'll be avoidant towards their parent. They won't really be interested in bonding with their parent. And she found that 20% of kids that you'll see in a sample seem to be rather clingy and anxious and are afraid that their parents, and they're afraid that their parents will leave them. And so she argues that we have these different attachment styles that occur in early childhood. Now, research then asked the question, do these relationships in early childhood predict anything in adulthood? And it turns out that attachment styles as an infant do predict later attachment as an adult. And the research over here suggests that children who are securely attached seem to be more committed, satisfied, they have better cooperative, interdependent means cooperative, and well-adjusted relationships. People who were demonstrated secure attachment as infants seem to have more satisfying, interdependent, and well-adjusted relationships. And it turns out that people who have secure attachment, demonstrate secure attachment as infants, tend to have better mental health. They're going to have less anxiety, less depression, less other personality problems. So the securely attached people are also going to have a better level of mental health as an adults. And what they found is that the fact that they have these and so we'll get these two kinds of findings. Now, longitudinal studies do show that attachment style stays pretty much the same. The attachment style you have as a kid seems to be your adult attachment styles. However, there are events in life that can change an attachment style. A tragic death. Attachment is typically seen as something that develops in the first 2 years. But if something tragic or horrible happened between you and a caregiver at a later period, that could affect your attachment style, right? Now, the thing is, having a good relationship can actually help somebody who's had a poor attachment style as an adult. So if you've ever dated somebody who is extremely clingy and anxious about the relationship, anybody ever dated somebody, has anybody ever dated somebody who appeared to be super clingy? You couldn't go anywhere without them. They were nervous that you were cheating on them, that you were finding other people. Anybody ever dated somebody who was like that? On the other hand, have any of you ever dated somebody who just couldn't seem to open up, who couldn't seem to share, who didn't seem to trust the relationship? Those people are demonstrating non-secure romantic attachment styles. And what the research suggests is that if you do have a good partner can buffer the negative effects that those non-secure attachment styles have on people's adult relationships. Okay, now let's think about this attachment. What exactly causes people to feel secure or insecure in their attachment to other people? Think about it two ways. There are two sort of qualities of attachment. Number one is how anxious I feel about you leaving me. How anxious I feel about this particular relationship. Okay? So if I'm afraid that you're always going to leave me or that this relationship is going to rupture, I have high anxiety attachment. On the other hand, if I'm the kind of guy that feels confident that you're not going to leave me, I might have what we call low attachment anxiety. So people differ in the degree to which they are anxious about their relationships. Think about this yourself. You don't have to type in the chat bar. But do you worry a lot about your partner leaving you? Do you worry about the rupture of your relationship? Do you worry about doing things that are wrong that will make your partner not want you anymore? Or are you the exact opposite? Do you feel completely comfortable that your partner is there with you, that they have your back, that they are not going to leave you high and dry? Think about the level of attachment anxiety that you have as a general rule. Put that in your mind. Now, the other quality of attachment, according to Hazan and Shaver in this particular article by Brennan, Clark, and Shaver, is the second quality is how much you use or are interested in using the relationship as a buffer. So, do you want to tell your partner everything? Do you want to rely on them for help? Or do you want to solve your problems on your own? Are you the kind of person that can come home and share your problems with your partner? Are you the kind of person that wants to tell your partner when things are going bad, when you're unhappy? Are you the kind of person that likes to lean on your partner? If you are, then you have low relationship avoidance. If, on the other hand, you are afraid of opening up to your partner, if you don't want to share the most personal things that are going on in your life, if you want to take care of it by yourself, then you might be high in attachment avoidance. And so Hazan and Shaver came up with this model where they can sort of test people's adult attachment styles, and they actually have an attachment survey that you can take where they measure your anxiety and your avoidance, and you can think of people as having one of 4 attachment styles. So people who have the secure attachment style tend to feel confident about their relationship. They have low attachment anxiety, and they also are very interested in using their partner as a means of support. So they're low in relationship avoidance. That's your secure relationship style. I'm not worried about you leaving me, and I also want to share my secrets with you so that I can get support from you. I'm a secure attachment style. On the other hand, some people maybe are brought up in early childhood environments where their parents don't care about them, and their parents demonstrate to them that they are not important and that they cannot be, that the child is not important to them, and then the parents cannot be relied on. You know what? You may have a child that grows up to be the kind of adult that's afraid that their romantic partner is always going to leave them. They may have high attachment anxiety, right? And you know what? They may counter that by then deciding to be a rock and not need anybody, right? So I'm going to be high in attachment avoidance, and that's going to be my self-maintaining strategy. And these people may develop the avoidant, fearful attachment style, the person that doesn't really feel like relationships are going to last, and they're not going to put themselves out to get hurt by a relationship. So these are your fearful, avoidant relationship styles. On the other hand, some people want to share their intimate things with their partner, and they need that support. But on the other hand, they're afraid that their partner may abandon them. So maybe their parents were inconsistent in meeting their needs. And sometimes their parents provided them the soothing and the comfort that they need. But on the other hand, sometimes the parents didn't, or were rude, or were mean, or something. This person might develop to have a non-secure attachment style where they're high in relationship anxiety, but low in avoidance. They might be a preoccupied or a clingy type of person, right? All right. And then we have these avoidant, dismissing kinds of person. And so they don't care if you, they're the avoidant dismissing or the avoidant fearful. Excuse me, I think I got those two messed up. But so in a sense, what I'm suggesting is that you can think about people's adult relationships as maybe being holdover models from what they learned as infants. And you can think of close relationships as having these 2 qualities that people bring into them, these 2 psychological needs: my fear of being abandoned and my need for gaining support from you. And you can think about people's relationship styles as representing a combination of these 2 qualities of attachment style. Okay, now now we're on chapter 9b, the second slide that I didn't get to. Sorry, we're 28 minutes into the lecture. Now, if you really want to make a relationship last, if you want to give it the best chance, your book does give you some suggestions, things you might do in order to develop better romantic relationships. Take plenty of time to get to know the other person before making a long-term commitment. I had a brother-in-law that went to the club on Friday night, met a crazy old lady on Friday night, and had moved in with her by Sunday afternoon. I would not suggest this as a good relationship strategy. Take your time, my friend. Let that love percolate, right? Now, you know what? All partners have positives and negatives. What I've noticed is in the happy couples, people tend to like to focus on their partner's positive qualities rather than their negative qualities. Yes, your partner may fart. Yes, your partner may be loud. Yes, your partner may be a little bit afraid. But let's focus on the positive qualities rather than the negative qualities. What do you get out of your relationship? Sure, every relationship has costs, but try to focus on what you get out of a relationship. Now, we talked about conflict management in the last chapter. Again, go back and make sure that you're not the kind of person that engages in conflict or that engages in jumping your partner or that is dismissive or avoidant in your relationships. Go back and look at that. And then, the hardest thing, and this is what I found after 32 years with my wife, you got to find ways to bring novelty to your long-term relationships. You get in these patterns and you just keep going through this pattern. You know what? You got to change it up every once in a while. You got to stop and pay attention to your partner. You can get into an automatic relationship style where everything is a habit. And you know what? Your relationships can get boring. Now, why do relationships end? Your book talks about premature commitment. Like I said, my brother-in-law hooked up with that girl one night after meeting her at the bar. Premature commitment. You know what? They just rushed in, and of course, they found out that they were not committed people, right? There are people out there who do not know how to argue and communicate with their partners. You've got to be willing to listen to your romantic partner. And this is especially important for you guys out there in the audience. Females are better at listening and responding. But what I've noticed is that a lot of my male friends who are married are not good at communicating, listening to their wives and talking to their wives. People sometimes just get bored with their relationship. Or, I do notice some people are looking for the BBD, the bigger, better deal. They look for more attractive relationships, right? Now, here's the deal. If you look right underneath me, there have been surveys on what causes people to get bored in relationships. And looking at these things, the causes of boredom. For me, married, yes, we do the same things. You know what? My wife and I actually do try to go out to eat dinner at least once a week, and she's actually taking off early on tomorrow afternoon, and we're going to see a movie. Now, I will say she works too much, so not seeing her kind of makes me angry. No communication. Actually, we do communicate quite a little bit. Yes, her work does spill over. Partner does things without spouse. Yes, I'm probably bad about leaving my partner at home and going out and doing others. You know what? When you've been married 27 years, sometimes you get into the habit of not having couple friends. You need to have some couple friends. My wife and I watch Netflix together, not movies. And you know what? We do like to communicate a lot. So, but we do talk about different things. We do talk about the same thing sometimes. So what makes you bored in your relationships? Take a look at this list underneath here. All right. Now, when we talk about secure attachment styles, did you know that people with secure attachment styles tend to have more amicable breakups, blame their partner less, and they begin new relationships quicker than partners with non-secure attachment styles? Demetro, that's what we're going to see. My wife wants to go see Top Gun. I hate to give Tom Cruise any more money, but my wife insists that we go see Top Gun. It's interesting that you should mention that, Noda. Here's the deal. If you've ever broken up with someone who has a non-secure attachment style, someone who is clingy, what you'll notice is that they typically do not handle the breakup well. There may be a lot of negative emotion, a lot of screaming, a lot of stalking, a lot of throwing things and destroying things. But partners with secure attachment styles do seem to be better when the inevitable end comes. They do tend to have less trouble blaming their partner. And you know what? They do seem to have easier time starting a new relationship. I don't know if any of you ever had a friend that after they break up, they just spend all their time worrying about the ex that they broke up with, being angry at their ex, focusing on what their ex doing, following their ex angrily or jealously. These are examples of people with non-secure attachment styles, and what you're going to see is that they don't do as well in breakups as people who have secure attachment styles. Now, breakups, they do research on breakups, and typically the partner that initiates the breakup tends to have better outcomes in terms of satisfaction, happiness, productivity, lower depression. So the partners that initiate the breakup tend to be the ones that are less devastated by the breakup. And they always suggest, I'm not a big fan of, well, actually, I would know. I've been married 32 years, so not that I can make a comment. But, maybe we talk about the rebound relationship as being a bad thing. However, the research suggests that having a new partner ameliorates some of the negative effects of going through a breakup. Okay. Now, how many of you have friendships or romantic relationships online? The crazy thing is now, you can have friends around the world. You can even have romantic partners that you can Zoom call with, or Microsoft Teams with, or Facebook chat with. You can look face to face. You can have face to face intimate interactions with people for around the world. So the amazing thing about the internet, it's allowed us to have close and even intimate relationships with people who are not around us, right? And one of the neat things that I've found, it hadn't happened a lot, but I've had it happen 3 or 4 times in my teaching career since I've been doing these Wednesday webinars, is some people come in and tell me how much they like my webinars because they like the privacy and the anonymity it affords them. They're too shy to speak up in class, but they are not as shy when it comes to online meetings. And so the neat thing about this new media world, this metaverse that we live in, is it does allow some people who before now wouldn't interact socially. It gives them a platform where they feel comfortable and can interact. And I had this one female, she had some anxiety disorder. She was a student in my class. She was in my Wednesday webinars. God, this must have been about 15 years ago. And I made a bunch of really complimentary comments to her. I remember blowing smoke up her butt because, you students need to hear good things about yourself. And she took those things to heart. And she texted me, sent me an email probably 10 years later. And she told me how important that class had been, and she'd gotten over her anxiety problems. And she wound up going to grad school, and she was graduating with her chemistry PhD from NC State. I now know she probably makes 3 times what I make. But she said it all started with her getting comfortable talking and being a student in my online mediated environment. So it's really important how the environment works. So Dimitro says it's a good movie. I know everybody I've talked to said it's better than the first even. And it's hard for a sequel to be as good as the first movie, but I'm going to go on faith, Dimitro, right? Now, the neat thing with online education is, of course, you can talk to more people. You can really expand your world. You can expand your friends, or if you want, you can expand your potential suitors. Since I've been traveling overseas, I've managed to make online contacts with lots of people. And so I have friends from Germany, Croatia. I have a friend that lives in Colombia. And the neat thing is online allows me to have this wide array of friends that I would never have had before. What an amazing thing to do. And you know what? People can go online and you can find groups and meet people who are similar to you, right? You can go find a Game of Thrones group to find. You can go find a Top Gun group if you want. And so the neat things is that we can go find people who share similar interests and values, and to make sort of our ability to find these rewarding groups easier. And the neat thing is, I find that when I message with my friends online, I can feel really close to them. And I don't know about you, people, old people like myself, a lot of times say that, that you can't make friends. You don't get to know anybody online. what they really don't appreciate is when you're instant messaging and texting somebody, and you do it a lot. I think you are getting just as close to them as you could if you were sitting in the chair beside them talking, right? So you can self-disclose in texts and chats as well. Now, so in the research, like I said, the research will suggest that virtual relationships can be just as intimate as face-to-face ones, or maybe even closer. So if you've ever had one of these internet relationships, you can really develop some amazing intimacy with a person online. But just remember, people don't have to be truthful. Now, all relationships involve some sort of presentation management, showing you the parts of myself that I want you to see. But that becomes even easier online than it is in person, right? Now, research shows that virtual relationships can be just as stable as traditional ones, and that online, and just like you need to maintain a relationship in 3D, online communication can be valuable for maintaining an online relationship. The only thing is sometimes people who get involved with online groups lose their ability to develop intimacy with the other people are around them. And I'm not saying that online relationships are bad, but sometimes people gravitate to the online at the loss of the real. And the real is the thing you need. You can have your online friends, and they're great, but don't have the online friends to the exclusion of the real world. That is actually problematic. Okay? Let's see. There you go. What makes a good friend? Many, in fact, are important, but common theme is that good friends provide emotional and social support, right? Uh, you know, women's relationships are more about friendship and building a relationship, where men's relationships tend to be more about activities and acting together. Okay, so whereas your women are going to be more interested in talking about personal matters, relationships, and feelings, men spend their more time doing shared interests and activities. I will give you a funny story. I play adult baseball. I've been playing baseball all my life. And I play baseball with the same group of guys every summer. And we spend every Sunday together for 6 months during the summer. So we start in April and we play all the way through till September. We have a game every Sunday. And I've been playing with this guy named Lewis. He's the second baseman on the team. And we've played ball for probably 5 or 6 years now. My wife comes out to the game and she sees Lewis, and I introduce him to her. And then my wife starts asking me questions. Well, is Lewis married? And I'm like, yes. She's like, what's his wife's name? I'm like, I don't know. She's like, where does he work? I don't know. Does he have any kids? I don't know. And my wife was incredulous. She said, you've been playing ball with this guy. You've known this guy for 5 years, and you don't know his wife's name, whether or not he has kids or where he works. And she's like, why? And I said, well, because the only thing that matters to me is that Lewis plays second base, man, and he's really good at second base. And so our friendships on my baseball team, a lot of my friendships on my baseball team, we don't talk about where we work. We don't talk about our family. We don't talk about any of that emotional stuff. Instead, we talk about playing baseball. And that's sort of how us guys like to do it. Now, I've been told that females are more interested in talking about these personal details and building relationships. But I will tell you, at least from this guy's perspective, I don't care what the guy does on the baseball team as long as he can get a hit when I need him to, right? I don't care who he's married to, what his feelings are, how he feels about this issue or that issue. We just play ball together, right? So, so men discuss these shared interests and activities. Now, remember we talked about heterosexism, and I suggested to you that there's not a ton of research that most of the research is focused on how heterosexual people act in relationships. And, there 30, 40, 50 years ago, there was such taboos against even being gay that it was hard to find people and to get these perspectives. Now things have changed, so we're starting to get information that allows us to make these kinds of comparisons. Your book suggests that boundaries between friendship and love relationships are more complex in gay relationships. Lesbians and gay men are more likely to remain in social contact with former sex partners, and gay and lesbian social networks is smaller, and that these people tend not to have as much support from their families and society. I'm wondering if that is still true. But basically, what they're suggesting is that the difference between romantic and friendship relationships get a little more fuzzy and some complex in these gay relationships, and that for some reason relationships between exes are stronger for lesbian and gay men than for heterosexual couples. And I'm not sure, and your book doesn't provide any evidence as to why this might be the case, just to know that there are differences in the friendships between heterosexual and homosexual people. The 3 steps of repair and conflict after friendship, reproach. It's hard. In fact, I need to do this now. I need to confront the person that I had an argument with my best friend, haven't talked to him in about a month or so, and I just need to approach the guy, man. We need to broach this subject, and I don't know how to do it because I'm a 52-year-old man with a big ego, but I'm going to have to fix the conflict between Pete and I, right? Now, once we meet, I'm hoping that Pete will apologize for what he's said to me, and I, of course, will apologize for what I've said to Pete. And so we're going to have to do that. And then hopefully Pete will accept my apology, and I know that if Pete were to apologize, I would accept his. But I totally get that sort of friendship, right? I don't know, man. I'm your friend, but I'll still punch you in the head if you make me mad. And maybe I should be a better person, Paul, but I can't. Loneliness. Your book talks a little bit about loneliness, lots of different ways. Here's a thing. Loneliness is not an objective thing. It is actually a difference between what you expect and what you get. Some people don't want much in the way of social relationships, so having one friend or even half a friend, and they don't feel lonely at all. Other people need friends so badly that they have to have 10 or 11 friends, and if they only have 5 or 6, they feel lonely. So loneliness is not a number of friends. It's a difference between the number of friends you have and the number of social contacts that you want, okay? So you can have friends, but if you don't have the right number or the right quality of friendships, you may experience loneliness. Your book talks about lots of different loneliness, different types of loneliness, emotional loneliness, when you don't have somebody to share your deepest feelings with, social loneliness, you don't have anybody that invites you to parties, you don't have anybody to go out with on Friday night, nobody likes your posts on social media. That might be what we call social loneliness. Now, when you break up, there's a certain amount of loneliness as you have to renegotiate the friends that you had the shared friends with you had your romantic partner. That might be what we call transient loneliness. And then there are those people who just have trouble and just feel lonely because they have trouble building relationships. You can think about loneliness as taking lots of different shapes and forms. Who is the most loneliness? Young people are lonely. I remember I used to help coach the Wake Tech baseball team, and some of these young men coming out of high school and being away from their friends were extremely lonely. And you haven't built up that big adult network, and you're just, you've moved away from high school, and suddenly you've got no friends where you had a ton of friends. You don't have a relationship partner yet. Loneliness is tough for young people. And I do have friends that have been lifelong single people. In fact, I have a female friend I talk to occasionally, and she tells me that she does go through periods of being lonely as a single person. She says, I then get my jacket and go out to a pub or join a reading group, and it makes me feel a little bit better. But being single, divorced, or widowed can also be associated with loneliness. As you get older, you start to disengage from society and people quit coming around and talking to you. It's really important, if you are a young person, to make time for your elders, because elderly are some of the loneliest people you will ever meet, because they don't have the ability to get out and mix it up. They don't have jobs or careers a lot of times anymore. And just people seem to move on and have no time for the elderly. So loneliness is most prevalent among people just graduating high school and moving out into that big world, people who have broken up with their romantic partner, and the elderly people. And people who have divorced parents seem to, and I think that's because you're shuttling back and forth between parent and parent's house. And it's difficult to create sort of these continuous relationships that last a long time. Okay. Now, one of the things they do find in my developmental psychology class, I talk about the negative effect that bullying has on bullies. We always hate it when bullies pick on us, but you know what? Bullies do that because they don't know how to fit in any other way. So this inappropriate bullying behavior, aggressiveness, being super competitive, these kinds of things can cause you to be rejected by your peers, which then cause you to be lonely. So the bully, nobody likes the bully. They pay attention to him because the bully's picking on them, but nobody wants to develop a relationship based on interdependence and intimacy with a bully. And so these early behaviors can actually lead people to be rejected by their peers, which creates more and more loneliness. And I would say that today's kids spend most of their time sitting in their rooms playing video games. When I was a kid back in the 70s and 80s, we didn't have video games, so we all ran outside. And there were literally swarms of kids outside, groups of 3, 4, 5. And you would see different play groups of kids running around the neighborhood. And sometimes all the kids in the neighborhood would get together to play a game like tag or kick the can or hide and seek. All right? And so I would say the invention of the internet and the smartphone has really affected the way we build relationships. And they've decreased people's potential for interaction with other people. All right, we are running out of time. What goes along with loneliness and strategies you can use to beat loneliness. Those will be on the homework and on the exam. I expect you to look at them yourself. I am sorry we're running a little bit behind. It's 10:53. I went over longer than I wanted to. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope your relationship is filled with consummate love, passion, intimacy, as well as commitment. I hope you are getting the social interactions you want. You are not feeling a sense of loneliness. And if you have a friend that you've had a fight with, like I have, you might need to find a way to make amends with this person by engaging in reproach and apology. Okay, don't forget, discussion boards are due Thursday. We don't have an exam this week, so nothing there. Homework's due on Friday. And don't forget, Wednesday webinar. Johanna, Caleb, Dimitro, Paul, you're probably the ones that are going to come to my webinar on Wednesday night. So don't forget, we're going to be talking about love and relationships on Wednesday night. If y'all don't have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye now. Okay? Go ahead and type any questions you have in the chat bar or send me a text. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Y'all take care and have a great day, all right? Bye.